G'day guys, welcome to another episode of the WealthLab podcast for this week. This week we've got a guest. It's going to be a pretty interesting chat, I think. So we're going to delve into when's the right time to engage a professional versus having a crack yourself. And look, the other day, anyone that knows me knows I'm a notorious tight ass when it comes to cars, and I drive an old dunger because I refuse to buy anything new. Decided to service it myself, and there's still parts of my car sitting on the floor of the garage. So there's a good example for you. when Phil should have engaged a professional. But today we've got Lauren with us, and Lauren's a photographer. So we'll delve into when do you have a crack on your phone, and when do you engage someone to do a better job. So let's jump into it. Scott, over to you.
Lauren, welcome. So probably a wider context is that Phil and myself were at a conference in Torquay, and we actually, I won't say we tackled you, Lauren, but we definitely cornered you, and we're like, hi.
No, that's right. No, it was good. I think, did I offer to take your photo first, and then you said, come, you wanted a photo with Phil?
Correct.
Yeah. Because you guys are not normally in the same room as each other.
Well, Phil's in Queensland, so I'm in Melbourne. And I think the reason why is it's just like from that like the stark differences between the photos you took versus what we're expecting was wild. Like our expectations were sort of at a level, but the reality was like, these are so much better. These are so much better. And then we checked out your website, which is almost incomprehensible, but it's laurenrayphotography.com.au.
Was it
that
Lauren?
right? Lauren, how do I get this right?
No, it's tricky because there's the two N's. It's hard to. Lauren Marie photography.
So what we'll do is we'll include a link. But if you're listening to this podcast, stop, click on the link, and look at the photos Lauren has posted. They're so unique and cool. Yeah. And I thought it would just be great to get you on the podcast to talk you through the photography process and when you think it's a good time to engage a professional versus doing it yourself. I think we'll just kick off from there. So over to you.
Yeah. I think it's very important to get professional photos. I suppose there's two different sides. You've got your family photography or your business. But I think starting off in business, it doesn't matter where you are in your business. So whether you're a startup or, you've been around for ages, I think having imagery that reflects your brand is so important.
Isn't your niche families? Because I'm looking at a lot of family photos here.
Yeah, so yes, my niche is family photos. Thanks to being in BNI, which is a networking group that I'm in, I get a lot more business branding photos as well. Just realizing that you wouldn't have seen those.
I'm looking at these like beautiful grandparent stories and like the newborns in the home, because we were talking about your preferences basically just to not do those set shots. And like if you just look at like the traditions, like you were telling us about that example of the sausage, the sausage making family. Like what was the sort of what happened there?
Yeah, so lately I've been changing up my business a little bit. I used to focus on solely photographing people with young families, and I found that traditionally people only get a photographer in, when they've got a young family. They think, oh gosh, the kids are growing up so fast, I need to capture this. And yes, it is so important, but there's so many other milestones in your life, or not just like the weddings and Christmas and birthdays. It's more the life moments and those little moments in between that I like to focus on. So I started focusing on family traditions and looking at how families come together. So I shot a beautiful Italian family recently. They had an Italian salami making day. So they did that every year, and that was a special tradition for their family. So I was lucky enough to go in and document that day as it was. Nothing was set up. The women were inside, which is a traditional thing for them, that they make this beautiful food, and the fellows are outside making the salami, ready to pop in the cellar. So it was
it's such cute photos. Like and like I remember you were saying it to us. You were just like, it was just there's just like real unique moments that you just weren't able to capture. And I'm just looking here. There's just like, it's real cute. Like the dogs trying to get a sniff. And then like the funny, like the sort of the guy in his 30s with his sausages walking out, like he's got a victory. Like there's just these really cute photos that just really captured that essence.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what I'm trying to capture. And I think, you do kind of pull out your phone, at family events, but I think to have it shot in an artful kind of way, and I'm sitting there looking for all of those special little moments in between. And also, I have a meeting with the families before I come in. So
do you?
Yeah, so we have either a phone call. So I spoke to Liana from that Italian family for quite a while, talking about what was special for their family. So what made that day special. We talked about her grandmother had passed recently. And so when I was on the shoot, I said, have you got anything of your grandmother's that you're using today? Is there anything special in the kitchen? They were like, no, I'm not really sure. And then as we were kind of going along, they got to the end of this bowl and they're like, oh, it's grandma's bowl. We forgot we're using this beautiful bowl, to make all this food. And that was grandma's and or Nonna, I should call her Nonna. Yeah. So, there's all those little details that I don't think families think to document.
So I feel
it would just become part of your life that you probably don't stop to think about until somebody else is looking from the outside in and kind of point those things out.
Yeah, grandparents. Like, so when they, as they age, it gets to a point where they have to move into care, and you find that their house is packed up. So all of the little things that make your grandparents' house a home, the house that they've probably, may have been in there for 40 years, the type of things that, they've got the big spoon and or like fork on the wall. All of those little things that make their house special, they're all packed up. And they've moved into a home and you can't go back and take those photos. So I know with my grandfather, one of our special things was to go into his veggie garden. I remember when I was younger, sitting on the back step with him, watching him put his boots on with his shoehorn, and we'd head out to the veggie garden and he would lift us up into the worm compost to see the worms. I think he hated that. You have to lift us up. We don't want to have a look in. He'd teach us all about the veggies and we'd come in and wash them with him at the bench. And while I do have a tangible memory of him, which is the shoehorn that's on my mantelpiece, I don't have any photos of my grandfather in the veggie garden. And that was his one place that he loved, one of his special things. So I want to be able to do that for families as well. I went up to Colac and took photos of Kay and Steve, and I said, what do you do at home? And they knitting, and Steve was always out in the shed tinkering, and they loved their garden. They have a beautiful garden. And so that's what we did. So we captured that. We captured little trinkets on her shelves and the scones that she made me for coming up. And it's all of those little things that I want to be able to give to families. And as you were saying, Phil, like people don't think of it until they're in a home and they go, oh, I wish I had that of my grandparents. So it's lovely to have a photo of your family at a park or at the beach. Like, those shots are great, and have a portrait, but to have photos of your grandfather in the shed, doing or the dog running around, and it's them in action doing the things that they love to do and showing their personality and showing them as their authentic selves.
It's such a cool concept, those photos, like going through your website, were really striking, and, I've got a young family. My wife dragged me along to do the portraits thing, and, I hate photos at the best of times, but, seeing the stuff on your website was amazing. And that'd be the kind of stuff that, I would find really valuable. I think it's amazing. Just those candid shots of the family just doing what the family does, I think was really cool. So what in your mind, getting back to the, when do you engage a professional?
Yes.
When does it make sense that I should be bringing someone in versus just whacking a few pics on the old iPhone? I know, the thing about from our perspective, obviously there's times to engage someone and times not. And part of what you're paying for, if you're talking to me is, whatever we're doing at the point in time. But part of what you're paying for is the fact that I've got 14 years of doing this, that I've made all the mistakes, or I've seen people make the mistakes before, and I can help you avoid all that stuff. And I know the things to look for, I guess, like the candid stuff in the family or whatever. So, in your mind, if I'm sitting here thinking about, I want to get some photos with the kids and stuff, when's the right time?
Any time is the right time. I think I have had people say, oh, but I've got teenagers now, I've missed the boat. And I say, it doesn't matter, like, teenagers are just as fun to shoot. I did do a shoot with a lovely family, 3 boys, and the boys were not in a great mood that morning. And the plan was to get them in the pool. So we thought, That was one of their favourite things to do over summer. They weren't impressed, but yeah, eventually they warmed up and then they just kind of forgot I was there. And it's like the rough housing that they do, and it's I think even after it, they were all tired from the pool and they went in, and I got some really lovely moments with the mums just sitting on the couch stroking one of, their hair kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
In bed with his iPad, and he's in primary school, and that's what they normally do. So that's what I'm there for, to capture them in their normal state and not, eventually, it works out. But yeah, really any time is the right time. And I think as we were talking about, getting the professional in, because we do see it differently. Budget and price comes into it. They say, oh, I'm not paying, X amount to get a professional in. Yeah, I can just do it myself. And I was actually having this conversation last night with a colleague, and he was saying, he said, what's your legacy worth? He said, asking clients, said, what's your legacy worth? And what are you going to miss out on if you don't get these photos?
That's actually a great question, though.
Yeah, but he was saying that, having those memories are priceless. And I was talking to a friend, his mum had dementia, and at 4:30 every afternoon she would be the most lucid. And she was from Ireland, and they'd pop some Irish music on. They would dance around the living room. And he said to me, if I knew what you did now then, that would be priceless for me to get you to come in and document that time with my mum, because that was so special to me. So it's all about, how much you value it. I suppose you need to see the value in it, and you need to see what you'll get at the end of that session.
That's such a good question, actually. What's your legacy? I like that. It's actually funny having this conversation this week, because as I said before, like, I'm not one to take many photos. I never look at photos. I'm just not, it's not my thing. But my wife takes millions of the bloody things. And just earlier this week, she's pulled up all these videos of the kids when they were little, dancing around the lounge room and all this stupid stuff. And, for someone that's not very sentimental, I just about cracked a tear. It was actually like really cool stuff to see, It just drives that point home. And what's your legacy worth probably does, maybe I do need to put more effort into this stuff, because it was really cool. Yeah.
That is cool. And as I grow, my children are 14 and 11 now. And I remember when my daughter was younger, she said, why do you always take photos of me crying? And I didn't always, but I was probably taking one of her crying, and I've got this beautiful photo and her tears rolling down her cheek. And it's just because that's childhood, and that's, that was your life, and it was just one little moment, and I just decided to take it. But looking back at her little, gorgeous little face, and all of those little tiny things you don't think at the time that you're going to miss. I'm sure Phil and Scott, do you have children as well? No. So if you've got a
four-legged one.
Pardon? A four-legged one?
A four-legged one that's probably treated better than my children.
Yep. They always are if the kids come along. I know my dog was. But it's all these little things, like, because the kids, they grow so quick, and, they might be obsessed with Elsa. I've got Ava jumping off the couch at one stage, and she's in this Elsa costume, and she still loves Frozen. Well, she never watched the movie. She would only watch the video clip of the song. But those little things, like, it just changes so quick. The next week they've got some other phase, or, there's times where they only want the red cup. They'll always want the cup or something like that. And that's what I document, those little things, because
I actually didn't realise, how much I would almost mourn those changes of stage of life, and looking back, I'm glad we've got all those photos and videos and stuff, because at the time I didn't even think to take them.
And do you lots of photos of your wife? Because
if you went through our photo collection, you would probably think I was single. Who sees anyone that takes them?
Yeah, exactly. So that's something really important that yourself and your listeners should take on board. No, just for anyone, like whoever's that chief photographer in the family, just pick up the phone and make sure you're snapping some photos of your wife or your partner or whoever, with the kids or with the dog, or whatever stage of life you're in. Because I know this is a bit morbid, but I hear so often people trying to prepare for a funeral, and they'll go, oh, mum hated photos. she always thought that, she wasn't happy the way she looked, or she wanted to, change her, she hadn't had her hair done, or all of these things. And at the end of the day, it's not important, those things, but having.
So think of the funeral, Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's a cheery thought for a Friday, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, that's the extreme. But just in general, you're still, I used to set up the tripod myself. My partner wasn't that great in taking photos of me, or if I asked to take photos, he would say, "Oh, surely you don't need to document." But it's not about documenting everything. It was more about me wanting to be in the photo as well. So I felt that, how do I put it? Like, I used to go to all of the children's sports events, or I was on all those holidays. I was there all the time.
Yep.
But in photos, there's no photo record.
Yep. That sounds very familiar.
So it's not conceded. It's just about wanting to show my children that I was there.
Right. So let's summarize some key takeaways here. So what would be the threshold for when to use a professional versus when to do it DIY? And if I were to DIY, what would some things you'd be suggesting? And then picking a professional, what would you also be suggesting?
So for DIY, just do iPhone apps. You don't need fancy photography gear. So iPhones have timers. They have, you can buy little stands now. You'll have your tripod and just press record even. So I think just, doing that, you don't need fancy equipment. And then also think about what kind of things are going on in your life that you want to record. So what you're going to want to look back on, or what's important to you. So that's one thing. With professionals, find a professional that I suppose resonates with you. So go on their website, have a look at their gallery. You want to make sure that the photos that they take are the photos that you want, I suppose. Does that make sense? Like, I've had clients come to me and say, "Hey, we want these posed photos." I'm like, "Oh, that would be lovely, but that's not how I operate, or kind of thing. That's not photos that I take. So maybe we wouldn't be a good fit." And then I'll refer them to another photographer. We've got a great community of photographers in Geelong and everywhere. Just make sure, you're a good fit. Have a phone call with them, meet up for a coffee even, and have a bit of a chat about what you're wanting out of the session, and, have that, some good communication.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'd say a couple of key takeaways there would be, know when you're getting out of your depth, or maybe, think about that a professional may be able to see things that you're not seeing yourself. You're too close to the situation, or they've just got more experience and they're better at that thing than you. We're all masters of our own universes. I think that's a good one. I think that's a really good one. Making sure you're the right fit, I think, is a great one too. I'm not the right advisor for everybody. If you want aged care advice, I'm not your man. I can refer you to someone. So I think that's a great, that's another great takeaway, is make sure that you are a good fit. Spend that time doing an interview and checking people out and having a chat and all that sort of stuff.
I think it's a good idea. You must see it in your profession all the time. People, trying to Google their own advice, to try and, like, hey, I've worked out my own super, I'm fine. How do you, what kind of advice do you guys give to people that want to Google, how to do super or how to invest, as opposed to getting a professional in?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question. And sometimes if it is something super simple, maybe it is, and maybe it is the perfect DIY job. But what I would say is, like I mentioned before, I suppose part of when you see me as an advisor and what you're paying for is for engaging a professional, is that I've got 14 years of experience in dealing with this stuff that most clients don't have. I've seen the mistakes that the people before them have made. I know the things to look for. And the legislation's, is no different with photography, with either the scenery you're in changing or the, technology and stuff changing. Stuff changes so fast, and it's my job to be across that. If you're a nurse or a doctor or a mechanic or whatever, your job's to know about that thing that you do. It's not your job to know about the complexities of superannuation, taxation, all that kind of gear. So I think, that's a big one. Back to my early example of servicing my own car. Sure, I've got a car that's got clean oil in it now, but I've also got oil all over my garage and car parts that I can't get back on. So, yes, I got a job done, but is it the optimal job? Well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
That to me would be like the equivalent of, someone that doesn't know what they're looking for trying to do their own retirement plan.
That's right.
Sure, you'd get something done. Is it going to be the right thing or the optimal thing? Probably not, because it's not your world. I think photography is much the same. I needed a headshot and had my 6-year-old daughter take it on my phone out the front of the house, and the outcome was shit. I got a photo, but was it the best photo it could have been? No. Was it useful for LinkedIn? No.
It's important to have that kind of imagery reflecting you in a great light, I suppose. Like, you want to look your best, especially on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just going to probably just quickly apologise too if anyone has noticed as we've been chatting. Scott's audio has been a bit funny, which is why you've got the pleasure of listening to me instead of him now. So that's good. But we're probably getting close to time, Lauren. Have you got any other questions or any other thoughts you wanted to get out?
I think so. I think everyone's everyone's situation's unique. So I suppose everyone has different importance of why they get a professional in. But probably a key takeaway is, especially in business, like people say that they can't afford to have that, professional looking branding photography, or they can't afford a headshot, so they just do the kind of the basic one. But I feel like you can't really afford not to, in a way. I think it's really important to have that, your brand and your business like reflecting, who you are, and you want your clients to see you in, the best light. I think, you don't want to look unprofessional, but I suppose the same with family photography in a way. Everyone has different reasons for why they get a photographer in. And I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Lauren. It's been a really interesting chat, and it's really actually cool to get that insight around, the sort of things you're looking for families and all that sort of stuff. And I guess the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think of to capture as yourself with taking a phone. For me, it's always a pose shot of someone standing in front. It's missing all those little key moments. So, it's been really interesting, and I'd encourage anyone listening. We'll put a link to the website. Go and check it out. The photos are absolutely beautiful. I've never really been a photo guy, and this has completely changed my mind and my perspective. So thanks, Lauren. Maybe just in wrapping up, if you've got a few hot tips on capturing those moments and things we should be looking for to get some of that special sort of family stuff in there, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think looking for those little moments. So have a think about what you would like to document and what you want to remember. So if you've got young children, it might be, if they have a favorite T-shirt, or even the milestones of pulling out a tooth, just all of those little things. That's always fun, isn't it? Pulling out a tooth. But just, have a think. We have all of these photos from our grandparents, and, I know I love looking back on them of my parents when they're in their 70s or things, but we don't often stop and think about how our future generations or our children or grandchildren are going to look back on our photos. And, what we don't often wonder whether the photos we have are showing us in that authentic way. So I think, just take that time to think about what you want to record. And even if it's something as simple as, if you're having a cup of tea with your nana or your mum or, anyone, just pop the phone on record and just, you don't even have to probably tell them you're doing it. Or even like the voice. Like I think having, your nana's voice. My mum actually just said the other day about like her grandparents were Scottish, and she said, every now and then I hear someone, speaking with a Scottish accent, and I'm just taken straight back to my own grandparents. So I think having those little moments, is really important.
Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely love it. So there you go. Takeaways. Sometimes a professional is going to do things much better because they're going to see things better. Don't be like me and get your 6-year-old to take your headshots. Know when it's time to get a professional. Look, beautiful. Thanks very much for joining us, Lauren. Really appreciate it. It's been a really interesting chat. And go check out the website. It's amazing.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks.